Good day to you. Welcome back to the podcast. Catch it, a new perception. I hope that today finds you and your family well. I hope you're living the best life that you can, in the best way you know. There's been times in my life where I've had good intentions. There's times in my life where I haven't always had good intentions. Even though the intentions I have are good, doing the right thing is what's most important to me today. So I could have good intentions and still not be able to follow through. I could have good intentions and then meet those intentions with my actions. I think that the way that I've carried a good heart for the majority of my life, and I've had good intentions, and I haven't always had good follow through, doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It means that my actions need to be in line with my intentions. To me today, having clean hands and straight eyes, I know what that means to me personally today. Now, if someone were to ask me, I would give them details on what that means to me. Having clean hands and straight eyes. It's not that I want people to make assumptions about what it means to me when I say those things and then I don't describe them in great detail. What it means to walk with a good heart. What it means to be a good relative. I don't want people to assume what that means to me. And I don't care to go into great detail on this episode of the podcast about what those things mean to me. If one of those sayings means something to you, and you want to walk as a good relative, you want to carry a good heart, you want to walk with clean hands and straight eyes, you need to know what it means to you. Not assume you know what it means to me. Because I don't know what that means to someone else when they say it. I can imagine in a general way what it might mean because I know what it means to me. When someone says, don't make assumptions, what does that mean to you? What is it that you assume? Is it that you assume that you know me because you hear me do these episodes of this podcast? Do you assume you know me because you've had a conversation with me? Or do you assume that you have friends online through social media because you've had contact with them and social media addresses them as a friend? What does it mean? I know what it means to me for someone to be a friend. That doesn't mean that I click on something on social media and it says that we are friends. That doesn't mean that they are a friend of mine. What it means is that online, that word is used. I make no assumption that they are a friend of mine. Now, they may be a friend of mine, and I happen to also click on that, and it may be someone I casually know, and I may click on something that says friend. If I unfriend them, does that mean what? So many assumptions are made every day of our lives. We have a tendency to make assumptions and assume that we know something, maybe about ourselves, that isn't real. Maybe about other people. What is it today that makes you believe, makes you think a certain way, gives you a certain perception? What is it that you're assuming? You could make an assumption about something or someone and believe that it's real. Doesn't mean it's real, because you believe the assumption that you've made. We'll use the name Bob, for example. Bob's worked in the same place for 30 years, maybe even getting ready to retire. He's got a few decades in. And at his place of employment, working in the guest service industry, let's say, many guests have assumed many things about him and told stories. And many employees through the years have come and gone, and some have stayed, and many employees have told stories about Bob. Well, with all of the stories being told, some of them are probably true. Some of them are not, because people assume things. They think that they know Bob when they've never had an intimate conversation with him. They see him do something or say something, and they think that they know something. They make assumptions, and then they tell a story that's not even real. It's not who Bob is. I don't think it's fair to us as individuals to make assumptions about other people or even ourselves. I believe that we will be better off when things are based in as much reality and fact as possible. The more conversation you have with someone, the more you can believe that you know who they are up to that point. It does not mean that you will know who they are in the future, because they will continue to change. As I told my wife, I believe that when people get married, they have two options. They will either grow apart or they will grow together, because they will change. After 10, 20, 30, 40 years of marriage, those two people are not going to be anything like they were decades earlier. They're going to be different. Have they grown together, or have they grown apart? I don't want to make assumptions that I would know those intimate details about any couple that was married other than myself. And I don't want to take for granted and assume that I think that my wife feels like I do. I need to have a conversation with her if I want to know the truth, so I don't assume anything. You could be in a relationship with somebody for years or decades and think that you know them well enough so you assume something. and you find out 3 days later you were wrong. Because you're making assumptions on who they once were and not realize who they're changing into. Assumptions are interesting. They are deceiving. Don't make assumptions. Don't think that you know someone today because of who they were decades ago. Don't act as if you're going to know someone and something about them years from now when you don't have contact with them between now and then. If you want to know who they're going to be in the future, you need to have open, honest communication with them on a regular basis between now and then. As you move out of the house and your parents get a little older, of course they age at the same rate that you do. Or your children are getting out of the house and moving out on their own. Don't assume that they're going to be the same person at 25 as they were at 15. Don't do yourself that disservice. Don't do them that disservice. Allow them to change. Assume nothing. If we don't make assumptions about the people that we love the most, whether that's ourselves or whether that's people in our immediate family, chances are we won't make assumptions about other people. And the less assumptions we make, the more questions we inquire, the more knowledge we'll have about someone, maybe the closer we'll be to them. Would that allow you to feel like you're closer to them? Would that change the way that you think about them? Would it interest you to know that they're continuing to change and or grow? What about making assumptions about yourself? How dangerous is this? How does it even happen? Is it even possible that you make assumptions about yourself that aren't true? For example, use some food. When you were coming up, you really had a disdain for a certain type of food and you didn't care for it. And you had an opportunity to try it again knowing you wouldn't like it, and you tried it and liked it. And you're not conscious of the fact that your taste buds change after a number of years and your palate changes and all of a sudden you enjoy this food. You made assumptions about yourself that you didn't like it. Or vice versa, something you enjoyed very much when you were coming up. Some type of maybe sweets that you really appreciated, had some refined sugar that was really attractive. You've gotten away from it, you try it. As you become an adult, or as you mature even into your adulthood, you realize you don't really have a flavor for that anymore. You make assumptions that you would really like it because you once did and you hadn't had it in quite some time. I use that as an example because that's maybe something that people can wrap their head around. There are many assumptions we could make about ourselves that may not be true today. They may have been true at one time. Whether that has to do with getting to know our higher self, the spiritual realm of the world, whatever that may be. We once had disdain for something we don't. We once had attraction to something, and today we don't. Do not assume that you will be the same person in 10 years from now, and do not assume that you're the same person that you were 20 years ago. None of that's true. Don't make assumptions. Don't take things for granted. Be grateful for what you have in the moment. Have appreciation for life. Appreciation for that first breath of life that you take each and every day. And if you have the opportunity, however you may say it, you could wish for, you could pray for, you could meditate for the breath of life again tomorrow. Looking forward to next time. Live in harmony with and use the bounty of the land to bring kindness to the world.